give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LOLC Finance.
Finders may not be keepers. Do right. Do the right thing even when no one is looking. Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society. In association with AICPA and CIMA, CA, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging media.
You're mobile, and so are we.
Gets me going.
Grab the Lite 87 app at the Apple App Store or Google Play now.
87.8 and 87.6 island-wide. Lite 87.
Hello and welcome to the show. On behalf of all of us at LMDtv, I wish you a very happy new year and all the very best for 2023. On the first episode of the forum for the year, we're talking to the Managing Director of Daraz, Sri Lanka, Mr. Rakhil Fernando. Mr. Rakhil, very nice to have you on the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
To start off our conversation, can you briefly paint us a picture of the e-commerce ecosystem of Sri Lanka?
So e-commerce in Sri Lanka is still a relatively nascent industry. Although there have been sort of players in the market for probably the last 10 years, starting with Wow and Ikman and Takas, etc. E-commerce is still very much only about, I think, 1% or slightly more than 1% of the overall retail landscape. So if you compare that to the other markets in our region, for example, India is about 4 to 5%. China is at about 25%. I think the US is about 16%. So Sri Lanka is still, the e-commerce penetration is still incredibly small and new. So there's a lot to grow in this landscape and a lot of opportunity for a lot of people to come and really grow the size of the pie.
We saw that e-commerce was once dominant in the urban areas, but now we're seeing that it's spreading outside the Western province. What are your insights on this extension of inclusivity?
So for us at Daraz, the regions outside, let's say, the Western province has always been a big priority for us to really grow the business. And that's really shown in our numbers as well. Like if you look at our business, only Western province makes up about 30% of our business. So 70% of all Daraz orders go to customers who live outside the Western province. So that's a very encouraging sign that let's say the mobile penetration and the sophistication of the consumer is quite developed outside the Western province, but also it really lends to really people using e-commerce for what it is. It's a platform that really connects you to a big, large ecosystem wherever you live in the country. So whether you're a seller or a buyer, wherever you live in the country, you can really tap into the ecosystem and trade, nationwide, which really is the real value of e-commerce.
So Rakhil, about the spread of e-commerce outside of the Western province, how has the economic crisis impacted this?
So for us, the economic crisis has been negative, to be honest with you. It's really affected our consumers' spending power, our sellers' ability to maintain stocks. So, our entire ecosystem, whether it's on the seller side or buyer side, has really been impacted, and therefore a marketplace like ours has suffered. COVID, for example, was a crisis that really, at the end of the day, helped online businesses, and it really drove adoption, whether, with our existing customer base, but also with new customers, people above, let's say, our target age demographic of 40 to 40, 45-year-olds and above really started using e-commerce as a way of for their daily needs. So, the last 2.5 years were something that of a huge boost to us as a business. And on top of that, people in areas that were not generally using e-commerce also was very much trying the platform, and it helped us really grow exponentially. However, the economic crisis has, really put a dampen in not just our business, but any retail business in the country. Saying that, I think year on year, on a rupee basis, we're still up about 25 to 30%. So that's a good sign. On orders level as well, we're still seeing, let's say, similar type of orders this year to orders last year at the height of COVID. So we're seeing a lot of the new users that came last year have stayed with us and continuing ordering with us. It's simply the value and size of the orders is where the numbers have come down, especially on a dollar basis. In us being a foreign company, that's sort of how we measure our success of our business. So on a dollar basis, we have been hit significantly.
You spoke of the customer side of things. Post-COVID, how are we seeing the customers kind of adapting to the new situation of, like you said, the dollar crisis and all these economic challenges that we've been having?
For our customers, it's been really people moving down the value chain or at the price point. For example, people who bought, for example, 43-inch TVs are now buying 32-inch TVs. People who are buying certain type of FMCG categories at a certain level are buying the categories below. Unfortunately, in the current hyperinflation situation, we still haven't seen salaries increase in the same pace. So people simply don't have the affordability factor is really affecting the size of their basket, the value of their basket. So we're seeing top line GMV numbers. That's how we look at our top line revenue. That's been hit. But on an order basis and on a buy basis, we're still seeing similar number of customers coming and placing orders. So for us, we're looking at this year as a year to really consolidate and really make sure the fundamentals and the foundation of the business are strong. And when hopefully the economy turns, we'll be in a stronger position to scale up much faster with a far more healthier business on our backs. So, for us, we're still very, very optimistic and positive about where e-commerce can go in Sri Lanka. Like I said, being only 1% of overall retail, the opportunity is still huge. So, we're very, very excited by the prospects of the next financial year. We think things will get better. And, as stability comes, more predictability and more sort of room to plan. And that's sort of, something we're really looking forward to as well.
And when we assess the impact of import bans and restrictions on e-commerce for Sri Lanka, how are local sellers maneuvering their way around these macro challenges?
It's very difficult. I mean, sometimes there isn't a way to maneuver. I think, on our platform, we've seen sellers really, really constrained with supply issues and maintaining their in-stock levels on the platforms. We've seen a lot of sellers move, a lot of brand owners, let's say, move into locally manufactured brands and products, which is very encouraging and obviously really helps the local economy. But overall, seeing that the local market is very much a foreign brand import-based market, I think, till imports are normalized and trade is normalized, we're really going to see the supply chain constraints really affect the consumer's choice. It's going to keep, bringing prices up and really, affecting everybody adversely. So we're really hoping that the import restrictions will be lifted soon and really trade brought back to normal.
We say that change is the only constant, and I think it's most applicable when it comes to e-commerce. In your view, how can Sri Lankan e-commerce companies really ensure the sustainability of their business?
So I think it's very important to really look at focusing in certain areas. A business like ours, we're fortunate to, have behind us a global company like Alibaba, really that supports our growth and really gives us the bandwidth to invest in many verticals, whether it's really doubling down on our logistics infrastructure, our platform technology, our commercial offerings to the customers. So it really helps us play in these areas and really invest deep into every vertical. However, for people really getting into this space, it's not practical to try to do everything. It requires a lot of funding, a lot of bandwidth, and a lot of knowledge to really be good at everything. So I think there's a lot of room for brands out there to really focus on really their niche. For example, you have a lot of e-commerce brands right now in Sri Lanka, clothing brands really, for example, that do well and really create great products and create very, very amazing clothes at the right price point. And there's no need to build brick and mortar shops anymore. So it's really about finding your niche and really investing into that niche in a deep way, and trying to sort of build an overall marketplace platform with logistics, etc. is a big challenge. And I think at this current stage, it does not make sense, I think, for any company looking to get into e-commerce to look at.
Perfect. And I know it's the wrong time, like you said, to be doing a lot of things. But if we look a little bit at technological infrastructure and investments in that area, where would you rank the local e-commerce ecosystem in terms of our tech infrastructure?
I think the local e-commerce ecosystem still has a lot to grow. I think right now you have, let's say, a few players in different aspects of e-commerce. So we work in marketplace, for example. Ikman works in classified listings, and the technology is good, correct? However, I think people need to also think about really getting the basics right, and I think that's what's really important. For example, a business like ours, although the technology and the know-how and the software is from a globally supported international company like Alibaba, if the local logistic infrastructure is not good, the entire e-commerce value chain falls apart. So we really look at how do we get the fundamentals right. Like, for example, right now in Sri Lanka, there still isn't a very good 3PL who is just e-commerce focused, 100% e-commerce focused. So with that comes certain service level standards and things that really seem very simple, but incredibly important to make the entire ecosystem of e-commerce work and really provide a customer with a seamless service. So when I look at e-commerce, I don't just look at the technology and let's say the software or the site that people should build, or how high tech that site or platform should be. It should be really about what are the different aspects of what make e-commerce work. For example, payments is another thing, correct? That's another area that we really should look at, and how do we make better? How do we make more seamless? Majority of our transactions right now in Sri Lanka are still very much cash-based, even e-commerce. So that's another area that really should be looked into and invested into to make the entire value chain very seamless, easy for customers, and transparent. So I think it's not just technology that needs to be focused on. It's just about looking at what are the different small pieces of the puzzle that make the entire value chain seamless and easy to use and frictionless, and for the consumer.
Talking about a piece of the puzzle, when we take Sri Lanka's e-commerce space, what do you think about the security, the privacy, and the authenticity that we're seeing?
I think where the standards that we follow are pretty let's say up there with any sort of international market. Daraz, for example, we follow very global standard practices to make sure that consumer data privacy, security is really taken into consideration, and really putting the consumer first when it comes to making sure that all their data is secure. So I think overall, the market is quite well prepared, and if anything, I think in some cases overly compensated. And I think overall, we're in a good place.
That's great to hear. Moving on to another aspect of e-commerce. We always say that e-commerce enables small and medium scale businesses. How can Sri Lanka really optimize the power of e-commerce to boost the entrepreneurial landscape of the country?
So I think, it's the responsibilities of platforms like us to make sure that the accessibility and the know-how and ease of use is something that we put up front to customers to be able to learn from and use. We make sure that our platform is trilingual, that really allows anybody, wherever you live in Sri Lanka. But we also work very closely with government institutions, private NGOs, to make sure that, the education levels and the training that is needed to help people understand the opportunity and to take advantage of platforms like ours is constantly engaging with the community and building that knowledge equity in people. It is something that needs to be driven more. But I think, especially with the numbers we're seeing, where, majority of, on the buyer side at least, now we're seeing penetration very strong outside Western Province and in more provincial areas. And now more and more we're seeing that on the seller side as well. But we need to do more. We need to really invest more into localized training. We're looking at creating, let's say, right now we've created mini training centers in different provincial parts of Sri Lanka, where we train people on how to use the platform, how to package, how to ship. And it's all about engagement and giving people, helping people trust in the whole ecosystem. That's the piece of the puzzle that really needs to be invested into. It's trust is where most people don't find e-commerce difficult to adapt onto, and that's the area that we're constantly engaging into.
Just to give you an introduction to our latest campaign. So we're doing a campaign called Refresh Sri Lanka, which we launched to kind of encourage a mindset change to create a more civic-minded society. If we look at the digital ecosystem and the e-commerce space, what do you think should be the priority areas that we should really focus on so that people actually look after the well-being of others?
I think although maybe the direct impact is hard to be quantified, I think it's important to understand that, when using platforms, you have the potential to support any small business or small entrepreneur wherever they live in Sri Lanka. So we really look at e-commerce and a platform as something like a great equalizer. You don't need to be a giant brand or a deep-pocketed conglomerate to be able to, for example, target affluent customers in Colombo anymore. You can list your products in Daraz, and wherever you live in Sri Lanka, wherever you're manufacturing, how small a business you are, you stand hand in hand with big brands and big conglomerates who also sell on the platform. So for me, that's alone a huge, let's say, part we're doing to help small SMEs and small entrepreneurs get off the ground and reach a large audience, and providing them technology to do so. I think that alone is something that really enables people and empowers people in a way that they wouldn't have ever before. So I think, that alone is something that we think is doing a great service. And that's why we encourage people to use platforms like ours as well, to discover new sellers, to discover new brands, to enable entrepreneurs that, people you will never potentially have interacted ever before with. And that alone really provides and creates a far more equitable society when it comes to giving everyone opportunity. And that's a big sort of, I guess, attraction factor in platforms like ours.
We are almost at the end of our conversation, but before we go, can you share with our audience some trends that we can look forward to in 2023 in terms of e-commerce?
So I think in Sri Lanka, one of the areas that we really want to invest further into, we really see huge potential in fashion. We really see huge potential in FMCG and groceries. For example, grocery segment really took off online during the COVID period. Obviously people bought on platforms like Daraz, but Uber Eats or other, the online presence of supermarket chain really changed the game when it came to people getting comfortable shopping online for groceries. But obviously we think there's more to be done. There's the service, there's more to be offered with the service, more trust that we need to build with customers to make it part of their day-to-day or weekly shopping behavior. So we think FMCG is an area that we really want to invest into, offer fresh frozen deliveries as well, and make it same day, next day delivery island wide. So that's something that we're really excited about and investing into. Other area is fashion. We think fashion alone has so much potential. It's an area that we think has room to grow by introducing new brands into the market, local brands, but also potentially international brands when the import restrictions ease, but also really making fashion more accessible across price points and brands. Whether right now fashion is still very much an offline business in Sri Lanka, and a lot of the bigger fashion brands are very much Colombo centric. How do you introduce those brands nationwide? So we want to really double down and invest in Daraz fashion further, and there'll be a huge rebranding around that, a new offering, a new platform, let's say look and feel and shopping experience to make it very easy for people to shop fashion and really make it the online mall for anyone looking to buy clothes.
Thank you very much, Rakhil. This was a very interesting conversation. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us. And until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.